Oklahoma State's new dude manning the middle, linebacker Bryan McCoy, is finally garnering some of the national recognition he deserves, but his most recent interview is what caught my ear. I don't even know if I know what a Todd Grantham spicy hot offensive D means, but I absolutely love it, and we're here for it.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we get to jump right into this linebacker conversation that is Bryan McCoy, the dude who we have covered multiple times over the last couple months. 237 tackles, including back-to-back 100-plus yard tackle seasons at Akron, which is precisely why he was given a fifth-round draft grade. Deciding to come to Oklahoma State was a little bit of a risk. He chose OSU over KU. And I think in the beginning, whenever you got guys like Bryan McCoy and David and Bradley, it gave us a good indication that our NIL must be something special here. We must be doing something or offering something that is pretty new to Oklahoma State country. Bryan fits perfectly into the system. He's a Malcolm Rodriguez, Nick Martin style of guy, same size as Nick Martin, 6'2", 225. Their 40 times, 100-meter times are all very, very comparable. Nick Martin naturally was the fastest linebacker we had last year. There's going to be some competition, though, for Bryan McCoy. Triff White is likely as fast, if not faster. And we all know that Gunnar Wilson was able to keep pace with Nick Martin this previous season when it came to workouts and running the stadiums and gassers and the whole 9 yards, right? So we know what Nick Martin provided for Oklahoma State. He just like Bryan McCoy had a 140 tackle season before he got injured this previous season. And before he got hurt, Trey Rucker and Nick Martin were like top 30 in the country when it came to a lot of defensive statistics. Now he's already projected to be a starter as a rookie in San Fran. We expect some big things out of Bryan McCoy, but thankfully he's been named to the Butkus Award watch list for the preseason. This is the top 51 linebackers in America that are eligible for this. And after a dude puts up 237 tackles at anywhere, he should be garnering this type of attention. So it's nice to see that the Nick Martin 2.0, or at least that was my designation to him a month and a half or so ago, this Nick Martin 2.0 is getting some more national recognition. And that is good for Oklahoma State. Locked On Sports Network did put out their top 100, which we're going to cover in a later episode. But as it pertains to this thing right here, it's not the fact that he is interested in being a cattle farmer. It's not the fact that he is intrigued by the small Southern lifestyle that Stillwater America provides, which means he's going to fit in naturally. But he speaks so eloquently, effortlessly. He's a very squared away young man that will take the cerebral side of the game and allow his athleticism to kind of shine. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is whenever he did his Dave Hunziker interview, he mentioned how most defenses, right, they try to key off of whether it's going to be run, whether it's going to be a pass, and then they make their designations on where the players need to be. He said that the Todd Grantham defense, for all of the offenses that are thinking about doing one thing or the other, it doesn't really matter because Todd Grantham's defense is a spicy, hot offensive D. And he said, well, if you know what that means. And I don't think a lot of us knew what that means, but if you go back and look at it contextually to what Todd Grantham was doing at Alabama under Nick Saban as the defensive coordinator and some of his years at Florida, I know third and Grantham is brought up quite a bit, but I went back and looked. And there was some years in the SEC where Todd Grantham was absolutely killing it. His first year in the SEC, he had the 7th-ranked overall defense. The next year, they were number 6. The year after that, 2019, he had the number 2-ranked defense in the SEC, the number 7-ranked rushing defense in the United States of America, the number 9-ranked overall defense in all of the U.S. They only gave up 102 yards a game rushing at 3.3 yards per carry. To put that in perspective, this previous season was one of the worst when Oklahoma State rushing categories are taken into consideration. The year prior, we win the Doak Walker Award with Ollie Gordon rushing for almost 1,800 yards. We take a massive slide back. So last year was uncharacteristic of the Oklahoma State rushing game. Yet we still averaged 111.7 yards per game, so almost 112 yards per game, and over 3.7 yards per carry. So even when Oklahoma State was having one of their worst years ever, definitely one of the worst years of the last 2 decades, that Florida defense was holding the numbers even more down. So we looked at Oklahoma State this previous season. Our rushing attack was not very good. The Florida Todd Grantham rushing defense would have even stifled our rushing attack this previous season. Whenever you go back and look at some of the things that Todd Grantham did under Nick Saban, it kind of speaks for itself. But that's another reason why I'm excited about this Todd Grantham level defense. It's not just because of the acquisition of talent. It's not just because we've been able to get the Bryan McCoys and the Chadavian Bradleys of the world. I think a lot of it is his learning curve. He probably learned a ton at Mississippi State. He learned a ton at Florida. And then he was able to take all of that with the Nick Saban system and then understand how Nick Saban runs a program and what Nick Saban is trying to accomplish. And I'm pretty confident, because Mike Gundy even alluded to it, he had a conversation with Nick Saban, a heart-to-heart, one-on-one. And in that conversation, Nick Saban gave him some advice. And some of that advice was, you need to hire an official head coach of the defense. And then we hired Todd Grantham, who just so happened to be a defensive coordinator for Nick Saban a couple of years prior. So this makes sense that Todd Grantham is going to have this new evolutionary system. But when you talk about a hot, spicy offensive D, well, what could that mean? I think it's going to be the aggressiveness. I think that's the biggest thing. This previous season, there may have been some reluctancy to go heavy-handed in practice. I don't think we're going to see that this season. I think you're going to see a lot of tenacity, a lot of physicality, a lot of savagery all over the football field. As Bryan McCoy mentioned, we're not necessarily going to wait to see what the offense is going to do before we decide to make our mark, before we decide to make a move. So whenever you go back and look at some of those Florida defenses, again, third and Grantham was a thing, but first and second down, they were good. Tackles for loss, sacks, they were very, very good. Statistically, they were pretty one-dimensional. They made you pass the football. And even in passing, they were still like top 34 in the country when it came to passing yards. So they were phenomenal on turnovers, phenomenal on first and second down, phenomenal in the run game. And now the passing game has some of that familiarity with Mordecai McDaniel coming over from Florida. And then you get Darius Thomas coming over from Louisville, who also comes over from the Western Kentucky Cat DD tree that also has connections back to Todd Grantham. I think that is what Bryan McCoy is getting at. We're going to be playing so fast, so aggressive, so fearless that if you make any hesitation, we're going to make you pay for it. There's going to be capitalization moments. If you hesitate in any capacity, we're going to make you pay. And the biggest question mark is naturally going to be the secondary when it comes to this. Because if you're going to play aggressive up front, and you're going to play aggressive in the box, and your front seven, essentially, including your linebackers, that is going to leave some positions that are open in the back end. So that's also going to mean that our safeties and cornerbacks are going to have to take a step up in this upcoming season. But regardless, the turnover machine should be a real deal in Stillwater, America. Tackles for loss, sacks, interceptions. Those are things that are typically classified as opportunistic. And Oklahoma State's had some opportunistic defenses in the past. I think this is going to be more about putting yourselves in the right position than necessarily having the ball bounce your way and be opportunistic. You can be opportunistic if you create more opportunities. I think that's precisely what Bryan McCoy is talking about here. Yes, he can be just like Nick Martin. Same size, same speed, same statistics coming into Oklahoma State, essentially. But when he's talking about having a spicy, hot offensive D, I definitely just think that means we're going to control the pace of the game. We're going to allow the defense to dictate what the offense is going to do instead of vice versa. Obviously, that's a bold move whenever you're trying to beat the offense at their own game and beat them to the punch, essentially. That could be problematic because it is potentially going to leave some holes. But I have faith that Todd Grantham has learned multiple systems now under multiple head coaches. And Dan Mullen was a defensive-oriented dude. So is Nick Saban. I think that he's been able to learn so much in his recent time since Florida, since Alabama, and even in the NFL, that he has a new idea. It's not going to be the same old system. But even if it is, if you take what Todd Grantham did in the SEC and you put that in Stillwater, that's very Jim Knowles-esque. And that's essentially what we're looking at this year. Does the defense have to be the best in the country? No. Does it even necessarily have to be the best in the Big 12? To some degree, no. But if you can shut down one thing, and he was very good at that in Florida, and that was the run game. If you can shut down the run game and you make an offense completely one-dimensional, you get precisely what you saw out of Oklahoma State this previous season. Everybody found the way to beat Ollie Gordon because beating Ollie Gordon essentially, relegated Alan Bowman to a little bit of a different game plan. And that was the recipe for success. I think Todd Grantham is going to be able to incorporate something like that in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where we dictate the pace of the game, we dictate the action, and we're opportunistic in the process. Speaking of being opportunistic, being dehydrated is not fun. Whether you're out at the field, you're on the golf course, or you're trying to make some magic happen at home, dehydration is no bueno. So if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether it's workouts, long days on campus, long days working out in the field, or just staying focused for your back-to-back classes or your back-to-back work scheduling conflictions, hydration is where all of it starts. And this is where drip drop comes into play. When you're on top of your hydration, you're going to notice that everything works better. Everything's more smooth. Your energy's better. Your mood, your focus, your even skin, right, can be better if the fluids in your body are not depleted. Every day, it's important to stay hydrated. That's why I love drip drop, especially coaching 18U baseball. In the summer months, man, whenever you're traveling all over the country, right? We've been in Florida, we've been in Bama, we've been in Kansas, we go to Vegas, we get to go to Utah. You got to stay hydrated. And a lot of times these young kids, they don't necessarily take that in consideration. So you got to stay on top of it. Drip Drop is the bee's knees for all of your hydration needs. It is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses a perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of the leading sports drink. Whenever you're trying to get squared away today, head on over to Drip Drop. Drip Drop is currently offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head on over to dripdrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. That is dripdrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for 20% off. Stock up now before football season and the summer months continue to keep you down in the dehydration doldrums. So we just mentioned Bryan McCoy got the early preseason watch list for the Butkus Award, which is the top 51 linebackers in the country, which because that was Dick Butkus' number 51. But on top of that, he also made the Shrine Bowl. And I think this is important because he wasn't the only Cowboy to get invited to the Shrine Bowl. We did have a few, including Gabe Panikowski, who won the Heisman Award for kickers at the FCS level, going 15 for 15 on field goals, 44 for 47 on PATs. So he's part of this East-West Shrine Bowl early invitee list alongside Bryan McCoy. And then we also have Christian Fitzpatrick coming over from Marshall. I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of his Randy Moss one-handed clips from Marshall. He did have almost a 900-yard season this previous year at Marshall. Collectively, he's been able to do some things. You do see an uptick every year in his production. The versatility is off the charts. The athleticism is off the charts. You're seeing that in the statistics and you're seeing that in the clips. It is nice to see that we've got a few Cowboys make this East-West Shrine Bowl. But I do think it's a little bit light. And I say that because last year Dalton Cooper was the only Cowboy that was invited to this game. We did have Colin Oliver, Nick Martin, and Ollie Gordon get invited to the Reese's Senior Bowl. But the Shrine Bowl, right, they do it in 3 different sections. They do it preseason, midseason, and essentially towards the end of the season. And they want to get the top, 3,000-ish individuals scouted and looked at and sent the invites and things of that nature. But I bring this up because a couple of years ago, Leon Johnson and Josiah Johnson, they weren't part of the early. They weren't part of the middle because they hadn't necessarily gotten enough playing time per se. Josiah kind of started the season fairly hot, but as the season went on, he got less and less opportunities for whatever reason. I do know injuries potentially popped up and caused some problems there, but we did have a couple dudes in Josiah Johnson and Leon Johnson that were good enough to play at the next level that didn't really get a lot of opportunities because Leon specifically, the whole objective was to redshirt, which is why the first 5 or 6 games, he didn't really do a whole heck of a lot because the idea was to put on 15, 20 pounds, have him go through the Cowboy football, Rob Glass factory system, learn the playbook a little bit more, get more, custom to the players. Now, one of the fun parts about Leon Johnson is whenever I talked to him about, why did you really want to come back for your next year at Oklahoma State? He said it was because of Zane Flores. right? I mean, yeah, he hung out with Zane and Hudson on a regular basis. That was part of it. But one of the reasons that he was hanging out with Hudson all the time and Zane, is because Zane was somebody that he was intrigued to play with. That was the biggest reason he wanted another season in Stillwater, was just to play with Zane. So whenever you hear stuff like that, it does get you pretty excited, which is one of the reasons why I think there could be more Cowboys that end up on this list. Jalen Davies coming over from UCLA, very productive season this previous year at UCLA. Statistically has done some things. Little surprised that he's not on this list of individuals to come after for the East-West Shrine game, which is why it is imperative that if you're going to be, a major contributor early, that you need to put up some stats. You need to put yourself in a position to be part of the next 2 rounds of invites, essentially, or at least the scouting portion of the East-West Shrine game, because it did screw over Leon Johnson and to some degree Josiah Johnson. They did get opportunities. I know recently I talked to Leon just a few weeks ago, and he got invited back and given another NFL opportunity with the Saints. But if he would have been invited to the East-West Shrine game, I do think that his opportunities in the NFL would have been much, much bigger. So it is important that you go through these multiple stages of this invite or scouting portion for the East-West Shrine game to equal more Cowboys. I think Ioshota King, he's not age-wise up there in terms of getting ready to graduate very quickly, but nonetheless, I think from a talent perspective, he could be somebody that in the next year or two is eyeing an invite from this kind of camp. It is a good thing. It gives you opportunities in front of scouts, more eyeballs, more film, more reps, in front of the individuals that are going to be crucial to the NFL success you do or do not have. So it is important that you get as many players on this. And I think Gabe Panikowski is going to factor into this season. Whenever you have an offense that's predicated upon zone blocking schemes, getting the ball out relatively quickly, a little bit of RPO, a little bit of the deep shot action, a little bit of the east to west game as opposed to the north and south game, whenever your offense is kind of based on that, you do put yourself in a position for some 3 and outs, or you put yourself in a position where you run out of drives fairly early, which means the special teams is going to be a big factor. So I think that Gabe Panikowski being on this list makes a lot of sense. Christian Fitzpatrick, from a talent perspective, absolutely should be on this list as well. I just think that throughout the course of the season, there are going to be some other Cowboys that have the opportunity to pop up on this list. So, of course, Sam Jackson V comes to mind. Not only his returning capabilities, but he seems to be a dude that could solidify that slot position and make up for the loss of Brennan Presley. You have DeJuan Lofton out there. You have Jalen Lloyd coming over from Nebraska, the speedster. And on top of that, you also have Gavin Freeman coming back. We got to see glimpses of both Gavin Freeman and DeJuan Lofton this previous season. If they both factor a little bit more heavily into the offensive playbook this year, DeJuan Lofton could be an option. Sam Jackson could be an option. Those are a couple of the dudes that I think we should be looking at fairly early on, aside from Jalen Davies on the defensive side of the ball. I think whenever you're talking about some of the secondary guys, Cam Epps has done more than enough in his time at Oklahoma State to put himself kind of on a higher pedestal. Is it going to be this upcoming season? No, because he's still got time left, but he could be putting himself on display for more in the future. What about Mordecai McDaniel? He would be eligible for one of these spots for this East-West Shrine Bowl. Could he perhaps take the things that he learned from Todd Grantham at Florida, make it even more applicable here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, to be part of this list at the end of the season, or even the midway point, right? So the next iteration of this voting process is going to happen somewhere around midseason. I fully anticipate there's going to be some more Cowboys that are invited to this. From the defensive line perspective, I think whenever you look at Demarion Thomas coming over from Vanderbilt, from a size perspective, he is that Justin Kirkland replacement. We do know that the defensive line coach, Ryan Osborne, has been absolutely phenomenal, right? I mentioned it last night on our live show. You know, one of the most intriguing conversations I had with Justin Kirkland was about the new staff. And I heard from several players, not just Kirkland, but, you know, he's obviously not at Oklahoma State anymore, so it's a lot easier to have these conversations. But even he said they learned more in 2.5 weeks from a technical aspect than they did an entire year previously, which is surprising because Paul Randolph came in with 25 years of experience. So I assumed that Paul Randolph would be able to get the technical side of the game down better for these guys. It just didn't happen. And then Greg Richmond, right? recruiting-wise, maybe he had some disagreements with the 4 or 3-3-5 system, and maybe that lingered over into some difficulties in recruiting. But nonetheless, Oklahoma State did not excel at the defensive line. We didn't have a whole lot of anybody that visibly got better throughout the course of the season. That is the name of the game this year. So could we perhaps be talking about a Sean Brown or a Jaleel Johnson being on these level of lists? I think it's an inevitability that more Cowboys end up on here. All we have to do is have a decent season, 7-8 wins, right around that range. As long as Oklahoma State doesn't go back to another 3-win season or even go, quote unquote, up to a 5-win season, I think there's some other individuals that could be part of this. Louis Canepa, coming over from New Mexico, could be on this list. Bob Schick, coming over from Virginia Tech, both offensive linemen, could be on this list. Markel Samuel, massive get out of Appalachian State, could be on this list. Noah McKinney had phenomenal stats at UNLV, should have played much more last year. He could be in this classification. So let me know down in the comment section for all you fine folks out here on YouTube, who do you think is going to be part of the next couple rounds of invites for this East-West Shrine game? And who are some of the players that are getting overlooked already before we start the season, whether they be returning guys or transfer portal dudes? I think Oklahoma State has more than enough athletic capabilities to have more guys on lists like this as the season progresses. But, of course, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Before we skedaddle on off of here, we get to talk about Marcus Smart joining LeBron James in LA to be a Laker, which kind of sets him up in a position to make a run at an NBA title. We've had some players make runs at NBA titles. Tony Allen won one. John Starks played for several. We did that. Terrell Harris won one whenever he was playing for the Heat. So we have had some Cowboys that have gone on and won some NBA championships. But whenever you look at the Cowboys in the NBA right now, most people think of Cade Cunningham. Marcus Smart is a defensive specialist that played for several titles with the Boston Celtics. So this will be pretty cool to have another Cowboy with the opportunity to play for an NBA championship. Do I like LeBron? Not so much. Do I like the Lakers? Not necessarily so much. But I do love Luka, and I do love the prospect of Marcus Smart going to be a defensive specialist that is designed to help the Lakers win big games and get them back to the promised land. Do I think that they're going to be good enough to chop down the Oklahoma City Thunder? I do not. But I will admit, in the playoffs, seeing LeBron James and Luka go down early, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's whenever you watch that team, it's like, well, what are they missing? When you have two of the best players in the game, how does this not look better? And then the defensive side of the game was a little bit of an Achilles heel for them. Offensively, they can produce, but defensively, they lacked a little bit of capability. So they bring in Marcus Smart. So you've got Cade Cunningham, you've got Marcus Smart. Lindy Waters did get to spend this previous season with the Pistons alongside Cade Cunningham, but his minutes per game kind of went down a little bit. He played more with the Thunder than he did, essentially, from what I was able to see with the Pistons. He's got a new opportunity. He's got a new spot. So Lindy's still doing the daggone thing. It's a darn shame that Javon Small didn't stay at Oklahoma State, because he is going to be classified as a West Virginia Mountaineer, unfortunately, in his NBA career. But I do think whenever you look at this upcoming season, there are several Cowboys that could be in the NBA before too long. Anthony Roy, from a scoring perspective, he's there. If the defensive game upticks a little bit for him, he's a draft pick individual. Leptris Montezukis, we've talked about him being a couple years ago. He was on the top 15 European most draftable players available board. He's coming to Oklahoma State. And then you got the Israeli guard that is a phenomenal facilitator. You got Isaiah Coleman coming over, who was extremely sought after. Kanye Clary, who just averaged 16.7 a game a couple years ago at Penn State. Then we've got some dudes on this upcoming roster that are going to be able to make a name for themselves and potentially carve out a role to get them into the NBA. Are any of them defensively Marcus Smart? Probably not. That was Arturo Dean. He was a Marcus Smart level defender. But he obviously is taking his talents elsewhere as well. I do feel like that the Cowboys kind of need some more of this. We need some more Marcus Smart, Cade Cunningham action. We need some more Lindy Waters doing some crazy things and making multiple rosters action. We need another Cowboy in the pipeline to make an NBA run. I do think that between guys like Anthony Roy and Kanye Clary and Isaiah Coleman and Lefteris Montezukis. We've got that. We've got plenty of dudes that could end up being big-time NBA players. But let me know down below, do you think Marcus Smart teaming up with LeBron and Luka equals the Lakers overtaking the Thunder for a championship in this upcoming season? Is that something you're hopeful for? Do you want to see Marcus Smart get one? I think we all can agree that we'd love to see Cade Cunningham get one. And the Pistons are getting better. There's no doubt about it. You know, the first couple years with Cade Cunningham, it kind of felt like they weren't really helping him a whole lot, and he was going to kind of waste away in Detroit, but that doesn't seem to be the case. They are putting pieces around him. They're being aggressive in the draft and acquisitions to give them an opportunity to make a run. So it's exciting times for Cade Cunningham. And it's exciting for Marcus Smart because even if I don't love the Lakers or I don't love LeBron James, I do want to watch Luka and Marcus Smart team up and do some things together. I do want to see our dude playing for an NBA title, getting Defensive Player of the Year as a Laker. It would be a pretty cool ordeal. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see Cade Cunningham, Marcus Smart, and Lenny Waters all team up together at some point in time and be on the same team, but that's likely wishful thinking. Nonetheless, Marcus Smart, congratulations on being a Laker. It is a very, very big deal. And, you know, he was with Memphis, and then they moved him, which was dumb because, you know, Memphis had an opportunity to be pretty daggone good, and he was clearly their best defender. But, you know, they made like a mid-season, late-season decision to trade him away to bring in some other pieces. It didn't work out, which is great. It makes them look kind of dumb. But they sent him to somewhere where he would just waste away. So this was great for Marcus. Get out of this rebuilding team business where you're going to compete for last place and go to a team that's going to give you an opportunity to compete for a title and to wear a ring and bring another one back to Stillwater, Oklahoma. He's a tried and true, loyal and true, bleeds orange Cowboy. So I don't care what NBA jersey he's wearing. At the end of the day, I just want to see him be successful. I want to see him get an opportunity to win a title. Clearly, they feel like that's a possibility. All right, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. We got to talk about the Zane train. We got to talk about top 100. We got a lot of stuff continuously to cover because we are creeping up towards football season. All right, y'all. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast with people out there. You're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Exciting times coming up. And we're going to do more lives. So I greatly appreciate all of you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Later, taters.